So what's the most common mistake I see when people are selling their collectibles? I see this time and time again, and it's confusing buyer's premium and seller's fees. And specifically thinking that buyer's premium doesn't matter and seller's fees does. That's not the game we're in. We're in the net return game, right? When you are selling, you are thinking about of what the buyer is paying, how much of that will I net? So let's use a real example from collectorcalculator.com. So I've gone ahead and teed up an example of a buyer is willing to pay $10,000. Now, you are thinking about selling on, let's say this is a graded vintage card, and you just got it graded. You're thinking about either sending it to the PSA Vault to sell on eBay or sending it to Heritage. Now, with Heritage, they offered you no seller's fees. And then with PSA, you know that there's a set standard commission of 7% seller's fees. So how do you think about these rates? Well, if the buyer has a budget of $10,000, when they're bidding on Heritage, they're going to bid a hammer price of around somewhere between $8,100 to $8,200 because that buyer's premium that Heritage charges on the buyer is 22%. So that hammer plus 22% nets out to about the $10,000 that they have budgeted. Now, on the PSA store on eBay, they're going to pay $10,000 for the card, but you will be charged the 7% commission, whereby ultimately you have two different net returns. The net return from Heritage is going to be somewhere around 82%. So around 8,200 of that 10,000. Then the net return from PSA is going to be 9,300 of that 10,000. So obviously there's more factors that goes into deciding where to sell, but from a simple numeric standpoint, that buyer's premium actually costs you more of the net return than the seller's fees to sell on PSA to eBay. So use collectorcalculator.com. Plan in advance. Just think about how these rates ultimately, you are in the how can I net the most out of the buyer's willingness to pay.